They had found the Star League cache under the west face of the mountain. It had been filled with silent rows of Star League battlemechs standing rank upon metal rank within the support structures of their gantries. There were arms and ammunition, supplies of missiles, and League-issue scanner and communications gear. There were vehicles, most powered by the same sort of fusion plants that powered battlemechs, but that were rarely found in non-mech vehicles anymore. Grayson had seen dozens of tanks, from vedettes to demolishers, aptly armed and ready to roll. Few tracked vehicles can cause the hearts of Mechwarriors to race with panic quite as well as the Demolisher heavy tank. This 80-ton monster trades speed for armor and two of what, at the time of original construction, were the most powerful ballistics weapons in existence. Mechwarriors were right to be fearful. As we will see, stumbling across a Demolisher in the wrong place at the wrong time ended many bright and up-and-coming Mechwarrior careers. The Demolisher was the brainchild of Aldous Industries, based on Terra, who were looking for innovative ways to provide colonies and planetary defense forces with a weapon system that could threaten a battlemech, yet avoid a battlemech's high price tag. The innovative solution turned out to be looking back at the earlier kings of the battlefield, the main battle tank. The options for tanks at that mid-weight range were plentiful, and it didn't really meet the goals set by the engineers, who were forced to think bigger. Pushing the tank's weight up to 80 tons would open up options for weapon systems that were usually reserved for the heaviest of battlemechs. The prospect of meeting the walking machines on their level with damage output was tantalizing for Aldous and for any planetary government that wanted to build up their militaries on the cheap. When the Demolisher first rolled off the assembly lines on Terra in 2803, there was no shortage of possible buyers, as the entirety of the Inner Sphere was steamrolling deeper into the First Succession War. Sales for the tank were brisk, and the Demolisher began to build a reputation for being a nasty surprise for overconfident pirates and raiding military units. In 2825, remnants from a RimWorld's Republic unit descended upon the planet Kessel after they received intelligence that the local defense forces had been transferred to reinforce a world on the Steiner front line. After landing their dropships and deploying their 2 lances of battlemechs, the raid was off to a grand start, marching toward Kessel's storehouses in the industrial district. What they didn't foresee was the presence of a lance of demolishers who were deployed in an ambush around the structures. When the 85-ton Rampage battlemech sent ahead to accept the surrender of the defenders stepped into view, it was the recipient of 8 AC-20 rounds that ripped through the battlemech like a Little Caesar's pizza ripped through my digestive system. The remaining parts of the Rampage that weren't blown down the street or into nearby buildings crumpled to the ground. Stunned at first by the violent response, the raiders began to press forward a few mechs at a time due to the surrounding buildings. The defenders had counted on this, as the buildings limited the ability of the attackers to overwhelm their position. As the mechs stomped in, the AC-20 rounds met them with desperate yet coordinated fire. 2 of the 3 closest battlemechs fell to the combined shots before they were able to return fire. Seeing the risk of throwing good mech after bad in this raid, the remaining battlemechs turned to their dropships and left empty-handed. The Lance of Demolishers took the field with only minor damage and 3 mech kills under their belts. Not too shabby. While most of the time, the machines warriors take into battle tend not to be famous in themselves, there are rare occasions when one makes the history books. The best example of a battlemech that received such fame is the Yen Lo Wang Centurion. For the Demolisher, the Hildegard is famous for a much less glamorous reason. It was a machine that belonged to a Merrick militia unit, which became more notorious than its peers after people started to notice a curious pattern in its history. In what sounds like it might have a ring of an old warrior's tale to it, the Hildegard survived more than 50 engagements without being destroyed. While this, in and of itself, would be a wonderful thing, the fact that those who ended up crewing the tank tended not to return alive is a problem. As the story explains, in almost every battle a mishap or damage incurred would kill the Hildegard's crew. It became a vehicle that experienced crew would avoid at all costs, lest they be its next victims. Maybe they should have named it Christine. Let's take a minute to look at this beast of a machine. Weighing in at 80 tons, the original Demolisher moved on a traditional tracked system. With a top speed of 54 kilometers per hour, it's not going anywhere quickly. But as mentioned before, they traded speed for improved armament. The 10 tons of armor provide good coverage for the tank, including 40 points for the front, 40 on the turret and 30 on each side panel. The original weapons on the Demolisher were a pair of 185mm chemjet autocannons which could fire those massive shells for tremendous impact. They were a unique design that utilized mixed chemicals to create a rapid exothermic reaction. While effective for the goal of firing each round downfield, it also produced a great amount of excess heat which required the crew to wear coolant vests like Mechwarriors. Thankfully, later models resolved this issue through iteration of the gas ejection system. The potential 40 damage per turn was great, and the concentration of that damage into 20 per shot is what made the Demolisher into a mech killer. With the success that the Demolisher enjoyed, Aldous Industries didn't feel the need to change or update the tank beyond minor upgrades and sidegrades. The demand for it was so high that licensing agreements were eventually signed with other manufacturers, including Trellshire Heavy Industries under House Steiner and new Samarkand Metals within the Draconis Combine. Following the clan invasion, Aldous did offer what would be the first official variant to the Demolisher that we're going to tackle today. One of the options offered was a Gauss rifle refit, which pulled both AC-20s in favor of 2 Gauss rifles, 2 medium lasers, and some additional armor plating. 32 rounds of ammunition were included, that's 16 per Gauss rifle. It also took the leap from internal combustion engine to fusion, with the price boost that brings. One interesting note for the design was that the power generation of the tank had some issues with charging both Gauss rifles and running the standard systems. This required the crew to fire only 1 Gauss rifle at a time, with a few seconds delay before the second shot. Firing them at the same time led to critical power loss of other systems on the tank. Though this has no direct impact on tabletop play, it's still a fun little bit of fluff. When Clan Jade Falcon invaded the Lyran Commonwealth, they claimed some very valuable industrial sites, including those on Sedaten. Seeing the potential for the Demolisher, the Falcons set engineers to work building a clan tech refit for planetary defense forces. Trellshire Heavy Industries got to work on what would end up being a much more flexible design. The engine was upgraded to fusion, though the top speed wouldn't change. Instead of 2 standard AC-20s, 2 clan LB-20Xs were put in their place. In addition to more armor, there was still enough room left for 2 clan medium pulse lasers in the turret, along with 6 machine guns split between the front and each side. 20 rounds of cluster and 20 standard AC-20 rounds provided plenty of ammunition for long engagements. The Clan Demolisher is an incredible machine. Obviously, it helps to have that technology advantage, but the versatility of the LB-20Xs, along with the 2 medium pulse lasers and machine guns, allowed the tank to operate without having to be babysat by other vehicles and infantry, or at least not as many. It's solid, and I love it. The next significant variant from Aldous Industries is the Fire Support Demolisher, armed with a pair of Arrow 4 launchers. It has slightly reduced armor, but also has a pair of medium lasers located in the front of the tank should the need to vaporize infantry or small vehicles arrive. 20 standard shots and 15 homing rounds allowed the variant to consistently fire throughout an engagement. A lance or even a company of these demolishers could absolutely turn the tide of a major battle. Though their value was clear, Arrow 4 demolishers remained kind of a niche product for Aldous. Within the Draconis Combine, new Samarkand Metals produced their own custom variant that replaced the AC-20s with 3 medium-range missile launcher 30s and a C-3S computer. A potential 90 damage out to 15 hexes is rather tantalizing. Sure, it has that +1 to hit, and you're not always going to get that many missiles to hit, but it's sure better damage than 40 in the original AC-20 version. The other downside, of course, is that damage is going to be in the typical missile groupings of 5. You could end up sandpapering your target and getting little to show for it other than a boot in your turret. The C3 computer is nice if you're running the mini unit, but otherwise wasted space. In a variant known as the Reinforced Demolisher, the AC-20s are replaced by 2 Ultra AC-10 autocannons along with 60 rounds of ammunition. If you're wary of the all-or-nothing value of the AC-20s and would prefer to split the damage, this may be the good option. It's also worth considering the boost in range out to 18 hexes when you downgrade to the UAC-10s. Unfortunately, there are no backup weapons on it. It's still a pretty solid tank. Our last official variant is the Demolisher Cell, which uses fuel cells to power the tank's systems. The older AC-20s were replaced with 2 Ultra AC-20 autocannons, which double their possible damage output. 40 shots will keep the autocannons happily sending rounds downfield. In addition to the UACs, the Demolisher Cell carries a supercharger, which pushes the tank's movement profile up to a 3, 5, or 6. Maybe we should call this the drag racing variant. Now, of course, we're going to need a Demolisher MF. Based upon clan technology, the MF is powered by a fusion engine and it carries 10 tons of ferrofibrous armor. The weight savings is invested in a Hyper Assault Gauss Rifle 30 located in the turret. Its long-range damage is supplemented by a standard clan Gauss Rifle, which reaches almost as far. For emergency fire starting and incineration purposes, a micro pulse laser in the front as well as one on the left side can solve all sorts of problems. All these weapons are aided by a targeting computer. Both the Gauss and the HAG-30 have 16 shots worth of ammunition. While obviously no longer a close-range brawler, the Demolisher MF packs a wallop at great distance. It would be a perfect addition to a phalanx of fire support vehicles or assault battle mechs. I've included the record sheet for the Demolisher MF in the comment section of the video if you want to give it a try. If you do, please let me know how it performed. All things said, the future of the Demolisher looks bright. After 4 centuries of production, there is still a need for a comparatively low-cost, heavy tank that can punch hard enough to bring down those smug battle mechs that think they rule the battlefields of the 31st and 32nd centuries. It's definitely not a unit that you can ignore for long, or it'll knock you down a peg or two. I'd love to hear your Demolisher stories. I know the Discord channel has been abuzz with a few already. It's one of those units that people tend to remember when it does something unexpected. Thanks as always for coming by today to talk some BattleTech. We should be getting pretty close to 11,000 channel subscribers as of this video's posting, and that is pretty cool. Thank you so much for the continued support, feedback, and if you feel the video is worthy, hitting the like and subscribe buttons goes a long way to feed my insatiable need for affirmation. Now take care, until we meet again, go out and make the world a slightly better place today and tomorrow.